Story number 1. Shadows at Tenaya Lake. I never believed that a single moment could alter the course of your entire existence until Fred Kleeman vanished that summer of 2018. My name is Michael Davis, and Fred was not just a friend. He was a mentor, a guiding light in my otherwise mundane life. His disappearance at Tenaya Lake remains one of the most haunting mysteries I've ever encountered, a shadow that looms over me to this day. Fred was 68, a retired doctor whose life was a testament to dedication and compassion. We met at a community health seminar, where his wisdom and gentle demeanor left an indelible impression on me. Despite his age, Fred was full of vitality, his passion for hiking matched only by his commitment to helping others. Tenaya Lake was his favorite spot, a serene oasis nestled within Yosemite National Park, where he found solace amidst nature's grandeur. The day Fred disappeared was deceptively ordinary. It was late June, and the air was thick with the scent of pine and blooming wildflowers. Fred had planned a solo hike, something he did often to clear his mind and reconnect with the earth. I remember the look in his eyes as he spoke about his journey. Calm, purposeful, unaware of the darkness that awaited him. That morning, Fred set out alone, his sturdy boots crunching on the gravel path that led to Tenaya Lake. The park was bustling with visitors, but Fred moved with a quiet determination, a stark contrast to the chaos around him. He was last seen by a fellow hiker around noon, pausing to admire the crystal-clear waters of the lake before continuing his trek deeper into the wilderness. When Fred failed to return by evening, concern quickly turned to alarm. A search party was organized immediately, comprising park rangers, volunteers, and even some seasoned hikers who knew the terrain well. We scoured every nook and cranny of Tenaya Lake and its surrounding trails, but Fred was nowhere to be found. The only clue was his abandoned backpack, left behind near a prominent rock formation by the lakeside. Inside were his essentials: water, snacks, a first aid kit, but nothing indicated any struggle or distress. What made Fred's disappearance even more perplexing was the security footage from the Yosemite entrance. The cameras clearly showed him entering the park, but there was no record of him leaving. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air, swallowed by the very wilderness he so loved. Investigators were baffled, unable to provide any concrete explanations. Theories ranged from sudden medical emergencies to unexpected wildlife encounters, but none held water given Fred's experience and the lack of evidence. Months turned into years, and Fred was eventually declared missing. The void left by his absence was profound, not just for me, but for everyone who knew him. Friends and family clung to hope, yet the lack of closure was a constant source of anguish. Couldn't let go, couldn't move on without understanding what had happened to him. The unanswered questions gnawed at me, pulling me deeper into the mystery that refused to be solved. One chilly October evening, driven by a desperate need for answers, I decided to visit Tenaya Lake alone. The park was quieter then, the bustling summer crowds replaced by a serene, almost eerie stillness. As I approached the familiar path, memories flooded my mind: the laughter we shared, the stories he told, the wisdom he imparted. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that danced across the landscape, and the lake shimmered under the fading light. I reached the spot where Fred was last seen, the same rock formation that overlooked the water. Setting up my camera, I began to document my exploration, hoping to perhaps stumble upon something I had missed during the initial search. The air was crisp, the silence only broken by the distant call of an owl and the gentle lapping of the lake's waves. As darkness began to settle, a thick mist rolled in, enveloping the area in a ghostly haze. My flashlight pierced through the fog, illuminating the path ahead but revealing nothing out of the ordinary. Hours passed as I walked the trails, each step echoing in the stillness, until I found myself standing at the edge of the lake once more. That's when I noticed it, a faint, ethereal glow emanating from the center of the water. My heart pounded as I strained my eyes, trying to discern what could be causing such an unusual phenomenon. The glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, casting unsettling reflections on the surface. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, I approached the water's edge, the mist swirling around me like specters. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, my breath visible in the cold air. The glow intensified, and I felt an inexplicable presence, a weight pressing down on me. My mind raced to make sense of it all, but logic failed me in the face of such inexplicable events. Then, through the mist, I saw him, Fred, or rather, a shadowy apparition that bore an uncanny resemblance to him. "Fred," I called out, my voice barely above a whisper. The figure turned towards me, eyes hollow and devoid of life. "Michael," he replied, his voice echoing unnaturally, as if carried on the wind. "Help me." Fear gripped me, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away. "What happened to you?" I demanded, taking a tentative step forward. Fred's apparition seemed to fade and reappear, his form wavering like smoke. "The lake, it takes what it wants," he murmured, his voice trailing off into the night. "You have to leave now." Before I could respond, the ground beneath me began to tremble, the very earth seeming to rebel against my presence. The mist thickened, obscuring my vision, and the whispers of lost souls surrounded me, their voices merging into a cacophony of despair. I felt an invisible force pulling me towards the center of the lake, my feet moving involuntarily as panic surged through me. "Michael, no!" Fred's voice rang out, desperate and pleading, but his figure was slipping away, sinking into the dark waters. The mist closed in, enveloping me in a suffocating embrace. I struggled against the invisible chains, my heart racing as the whispers grew louder, more insistent. With every ounce of strength, I forced myself to break free, stumbling backward towards the path. The mist began to lift, the oppressive weight dissipating as quickly as it had descended. Gasping for breath, I looked back to see Fred's apparition dissolved into the night, leaving me alone by the now still waters of Tenaya Lake. I ran without looking back, the sense of urgency propelling me forward until I reached the safety of my car. Trembling and drenched in sweat, I drove away from the lake, the haunting experience etched into my memory. The following days were a blur as I tried to process what had happened, seeking solace in the company of friends and family who listened to my account with a mix of skepticism and concern. Determined to uncover the truth, I delved into the history of Tenaya Lake, poring over old records and local legends. It was then that I stumbled upon a series of similar disappearances spanning decades, all centered around the same enigmatic waters. Each story bore eerie similarities: experienced hikers vanishing without a trace, security footage capturing their entrance but nothing of their departure, and inexplicable phenomena reported by those who dared to linger. The legends spoke of an ancient curse, a restless spirit bound to the lake, claiming souls who dared to disrupt its eternal slumber. While I had always dismissed such tales as folklore, my encounter left me with no choice but to reconsider. The evidence was too compelling, the patterns too consistent to ignore. I decided to return once more, armed with determination and a newfound respect for the mysteries that nature can hold. This time, I wasn't just searching for answers. I was seeking closure for Fred and countless others who had been lost to the lake's dark embrace. As I stood at the water's edge, the mist swirling around me once more, I felt a sense of calm, as if Fred's spirit was guiding me. "Thank you," I whispered into the night, a promise to never forget and to honor those who had vanished. The lake remained silent, its secrets still tightly guarded, but I knew that some mysteries are meant to be respected, their truths hidden beneath layers of time and legend. Fred's disappearance may never be fully explained, but the experience taught me the importance of humility in the face of nature's enigmatic forces. Tenaya Lake stands as a sentinel, its waters reflecting both beauty and darkness, a reminder that some places hold secrets too profound to comprehend. And as I move forward, the shadows of that summer linger, a testament to the thin veil between our world and the unknown, where whispers of the lost echo through the night. Story number 2. Whispers of Cathedral Lakes. I never believed in ghosts, not until Alan Martin vanished without a trace in the summer of 2014. My name is Daniel Harper, and Alan was more than just a friend. He was a brother in arms during our countless hikes through the rugged terrains of Cathedral Lakes. His disappearance left a void that time couldn't fill, and the unanswered questions still haunt me to this day. Alan was 51, a seasoned hiker with a passion for nature that was infectious. We met over a decade ago at a local outdoor club, bonding over our shared love for the wilderness. Cathedral Lakes was our favorite spot, a serene expanse of water nestled among towering pines and rocky outcrops. It was a place where time seemed to stand still, and the worries of the world melted away with each step we took on its well-worn trails. The morning Alan disappeared was deceptively beautiful. The sun cast a golden hue over the landscape, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the earthy scent of pine and damp soil. We set out early, eager to explore a new trail that promised breathtaking views of the lakes from a higher vantage point. Alan was in high spirits, his laughter echoing through the trees as we navigated the winding path. As we reached a particularly steep section, Alan paused to catch his breath. He leaned against a moss-covered rock, pulling out his water bottle. "This view never gets old," he said, gazing out over the shimmering waters below. I nodded in agreement, but a nagging sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. There was something different that day, an intangible tension that I couldn't quite place. We continued our ascent, the trail becoming narrower and more treacherous. The canopy above grew denser, filtering the sunlight into fragmented patterns on the forest floor. Suddenly, Alan stopped again, his expression serious. "Do you hear that?" he asked, his eyes scanning the silent woods. I strained to listen, but the forest remained unnaturally quiet. "Hear what?" I replied, unease creeping into my voice. "Like whispers," Alan said softly. "It's hard to explain." Before I could respond, a cold gust of wind swept through the trees, sending a shiver down my spine. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, yet no words were discernible. We exchanged a glance, both of us silently acknowledging the eerie phenomenon. Alan shrugged it off, determined to press on. "Probably just the wind playing tricks on us," he suggested. But as we continued, the whispers persisted, weaving through the rustling leaves and snapping twigs. The trail seemed to twist and turn unnaturally, leading us deeper into the heart of the forest. My heart pounded as I followed Alan, trying to shake off the growing dread that clung to me like a heavy fog. Then, without warning, Alan disappeared. One moment he was beside me, and the next, he was gone, vanished into thin air. Panic surged through me as I called out his name, my voice echoing eerily through the silent woods. "Alan, where are you?" No response. I scanned the area frantically, my mind racing to comprehend what had just happened. The trail we had been following seemed to dissolve into the underbrush, leaving me stranded in an unfamiliar part of Cathedral Lakes. The whispers had ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence that weighed heavily on my chest. I retraced our steps, desperate to find any sign of Alan. Hours turned into days as I searched every nook and cranny of the vast wilderness. But there was no trace of him, no footprints, no abandoned gear, nothing. The only evidence of his existence was a single water bottle left behind on a flat rock. Glistening in the fading sunlight, the authorities launched a large-scale search operation. But despite their exhaustive efforts, Alan remained missing. It was as if he had been swallowed by the very forest he loved so dearly. Friends and family clung to hope, but the lack of any concrete evidence only deepened the mystery. How could someone with Alan's experience and knowledge of the terrain simply disappear without a sound? Years have passed since that fateful day, but the pain of his absence remains raw. I find myself drawn back to Cathedral Lakes, seeking answers that never came. On the anniversary of his disappearance, I decided to hike the same trail alone, hoping to uncover any hidden truths that might explain what happened to him. The forest greeted me with the same serene beauty, yet an underlying tension lingered in the air. I followed the familiar path, each step bringing back vivid memories of that day. As I approached the spot where Alan vanished, a sense of foreboding settled over me. The whispers returned, faint at first, then growing louder, intertwining with the rustling leaves and the distant call of a lone bird. "Daniel," the voice seemed to say, almost too soft to hear. My heart raced as I looked around, but there was no one in sight. The trail ahead appeared unchanged, yet I felt an invisible barrier preventing me from moving forward. Determined, I pressed on, the whispers guiding me deeper into the woods. As dusk began to fall, the forest transformed. Shadows lengthened, and the once welcoming trails became menacing mazes of darkness. The whispers grew more distinct, forming fragmented sentences that sent chills down my spine. "Help us! Find the way!" I stumbled upon a clearing, illuminated by the pale light of the setting sun filtering through the trees. In the center stood a stone altar, overgrown with moss and vines. The whispers converged into a chorus of voices, echoing around me in a haunting symphony. "Join us! Stay with us!" Suddenly, the ground beneath me began to tremble, and the air grew thick with an unnatural stillness. I felt a presence behind me, a cold breath on my neck, and a shadowy figure materialized from the darkness. It was Alan, or at least, his apparition. His eyes were hollow, and his expression was one of eternal sorrow. "Daniel," he whispered, his voice echoing like a distant memory. "You shouldn't have come." Before I could respond, the forest seemed to come alive, branches twisting into grotesque shapes and roots reaching out like skeletal hands. The whispers turned into agonized screams, and the stone altar began to glow with an eerie light. I felt myself being pulled toward it, the weight of unseen forces pressing down on me. Desperate to escape, I turned and ran, the forest morphing around me into an endless labyrinth of darkness and fear. The whispers followed, now a cacophony of tormented souls yearning for release. My breaths came in short, panicked gasps as I navigated the treacherous terrain, each step taking me deeper into the heart of the unknown. Just as I felt my strength waning, a beam of light pierced through the canopy, guiding me toward the trailhead. With a final surge of adrenaline, I broke free from the forest's grip, collapsing on the path as dawn broke over Cathedral Lakes. The whispers faded, replaced by the gentle sounds of morning birdsong and the rustling leaves. Exhausted and trembling, I made my way back to civilization. The memories of that night seared into my mind. The authorities found nothing out of the ordinary, dismissing my experience as the product of a traumatized mind. But I knew what I had encountered was real, an ethereal presence that still lingers in the shadows of Cathedral Lakes. Alan was never found, and the mystery of his disappearance remains unsolved. Some say the forest holds secrets too dark to comprehend, a realm where lost souls wander in eternal limbo. Others believe it was a tragic accident, a rare misstep in the unforgiving wilderness. But I know the truth lies somewhere in between, a haunting reminder that some mysteries are best left unexplored. Now, whenever I visit Cathedral Lakes, I feel a lingering presence, a silent watcher amidst the trees. The whispers return, a subtle reminder of the thin veil between our world and something far more sinister. Alan's disappearance serves as a testament to the unknown forces that dwell in the heart of nature, waiting to ensnare those who dare to uncover their secrets. The experience changed me, instilling a profound respect for the mysteries that lie hidden in the wilderness. While others see Cathedral Lakes as a place of beauty and tranquility, I see it as a gateway to the unknown, a realm where the echoes of the lost linger on, forever whispering in the shadows. Story number 3. Whispers on Mist Trail. I never imagined that a simple hike could unravel the fabric of my reality. But that's exactly what happened on Mist Trail. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and the disappearance of Carol and Hildebrand still haunts me, both in memory and in restless dreams. It was a crisp autumn morning in October 2005 when Carol decided to embark on a solo hike along Mist Trail, a well-trodden path known for its serene beauty and relatively easy terrain. At 36, Carol was an avid hiker, seasoned by countless excursions through forests and mountains. Her disappearance baffled everyone who knew her, including the seasoned rescue teams who scoured the area without finding a trace. What made it even more perplexing was that Mist Trail posed no significant challenges, and Carol was more than capable of handling herself in the wilderness. I first met Carol in college, where our shared love for the outdoors forged a deep friendship. We spent weekends exploring trails, sharing stories by the campfire, and pushing each other to reach new heights, both literally and metaphorically. So, when she mentioned her plan to hike Mist Trail alone, I didn't think twice about it. After all, she was meticulous in her preparations and confident in her abilities. The day she vanished began like any other hike. The sun filtered through the canopy, casting dappled shadows on the path. Carol was last seen by a fellow hiker around mid-morning, pausing to take photos of the vibrant fall foliage. She waved as she settled onto a rock, her camera capturing the essence of the trail's beauty. After that, she was gone. The news of her disappearance spread quickly. Her family was devastated, and search parties were organized immediately. Volunteers combed through the dense woods. But despite their efforts, there was no sign of Carol, no footprints leading away from the spot where she was last seen. No abandoned gear, nothing. It was as if she had simply evaporated into thin air. Months passed without a clue, and Carol was declared missing. The uncertainty was unbearable, gnawing at everyone who cared about her. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind replaying that morning over and over, searching for answers that never came. Desperate for closure, I decided to visit Mist Trail alone, hoping to connect with whatever remnants of Carol's presence might linger. Equipped with my camera and a flashlight, I set out on a chilly October evening. The trail was quiet, the usual sounds of the forest muted as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and a light fog began to roll in, enveloping the path in a ghostly haze. As I walked, memories of Carol flooded my mind, her infectious laugh, her unwavering determination, the way she could make even the most challenging hike feel effortless. The trail seemed familiar, yet there was an unsettling feeling that something was off, as if the forest was watching me. About halfway through, I reached the spot where Carol had stopped to rest. The same large rock she had perched on stood there, bathed in the fading light. I approached cautiously, scanning the area for any signs of her presence. Nothing, just the rock, the surrounding trees, and the lingering mist. I decided to set up my camera and take some photos, hoping to capture the essence of the place. As I raised the camera, a chill ran down my spine, and the temperature seemed to drop abruptly. I glanced around, noticing how the shadows had deepened, and the forest seemed to close in around me. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper, almost indistinguishable from the rustling leaves. "Sarah." The voice was soft, ethereal, and unmistakably familiar. My heart pounded as I spun around, trying to locate the source, but saw nothing. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Sarah, help me," I called out, my voice trembling. "Carol? Is that you?" Silence answered me, thick and oppressive. I felt a presence, a heaviness that pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. The mist swirled around, and for a moment, I thought I saw a figure emerge from the fog, tall, shadowy, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through my very soul. Panic set in as I stumbled backward, tripping over roots and fallen leaves. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie beams of light that danced erratically through the trees. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, echoing around me in disjointed fragments. Help me. I tried to steady myself, forcing my legs to move despite the fear that had gripped me. Every instinct screamed to run, to escape the oppressive atmosphere. But something held me in place. I felt drawn to the spot where Carol had vanished, compelled to uncover the truth. As I continued forward, the whispers turned into voices, multiple voices layered on top of each other, chanting in an indecipherable language. The ground beneath my feet seemed to pulse, and the trees twisted into grotesque shapes, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Suddenly, the path opened up into a small clearing, illuminated by an unnatural light that seemed to emanate from nowhere. In the center stood a stone pedestal, similar to the rock Carol had sat on, but larger and more imposing. Atop it lay Carol's abandoned backpack, identical to the one found during the search. My hands trembled as I reached out to touch it, the weight of unanswered questions pressing down on me. As my fingers closed around the strap, a surge of energy coursed through me, and the world around me began to distort. The whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of screams, and the mist thickened, obscuring my vision. I felt myself being pulled toward the pedestal, the ground shifting beneath me like quicksand. Desperately, I tried to resist, but an unseen force dragged me closer. The air grew colder, and the voices intensified, now forming a coherent plea. Help us, free us. With every ounce of strength, I willed myself to break free from the invisible grip. My vision blurred, and I was plunged into darkness. The last thing I felt was Carol's presence beside me, her hand reaching out, her eyes filled with an eternal sorrow. When I came to, I was lying on the trail, the first light of dawn breaking through the trees. The mist had lifted, and the forest seemed peaceful once more. I sat up, disoriented, my heart racing. There was no sign of the pedestal, the backpack, or any indication that anything had happened. It was as if the night's events had been a vivid nightmare. Shaken, I made my way back to civilization, the memory of that night etched into my mind. I reported my experience to the authorities, but they dismissed it as stress and exhaustion from the prolonged search. Yet, I knew what I had felt, seen, and heard was real. Months turned into years, and Carol was never found. The mystery of her disappearance remains unsolved, a lingering question that haunts me to this day. I often return to Mist Trail, hoping to find closure or perhaps another glimpse into that otherworldly realm where Carol now resides. There are nights when I hear whispers in the wind, faint echoes of her voice calling out for help. Sometimes, I see a shadowy figure standing by the old rock, watching me with hollow eyes that mirror the pain and loss I carry within. The forest holds its secrets tightly, guarding the truth of that fateful day, leaving me to wonder if Carol is still out there, trapped between the living and the dead. The experience changed me, instilling a deep respect for the mysteries that lie hidden in nature. While others see Mist Trail as just another hiking path, I see it as a gateway to something beyond our understanding, a place where the veil between worlds is thin, and the whispers of the lost linger on, waiting to be heard by those who dare to listen. Story number 4. Echoes of Vernal Falls. I never thought I'd be the one telling this story, yet here I am, haunted by memories that refuse to fade. My name is Alex Thompson, and what happened to my friend Timothy Barnes still gnaws at me every waking moment and invades my dreams every night. Timothy was 25, a seasoned mountaineer with an adventurous spirit that matched the rugged peaks he loved to conquer. We met in college, bonded over our love for the outdoors, and quickly became inseparable. His knowledge of the trails and his unwavering confidence inspired me, and I often found myself trailing behind him, eager to learn and explore. It was early September 1988, and the summer heat had begun to wane, making it the perfect time for our expedition to Vernal Falls. Nestled in the heart of the Cascade Range, Vernal Falls was renowned for its breathtaking beauty and challenging climbs. Timothy had meticulously planned our route, assuring me that his experience would guide us safely through the most treacherous sections. The first few days were everything we had hoped for: clear skies, cool breezes, and the exhilarating sense of accomplishment that comes with each summit reached. We camped near the base of Vernal Falls, waking up each morning to the misty spray from the cascading water and the songs of distant birds. On the fourth day, we set out early, aiming to tackle the most difficult ascent yet. The trail was steep and narrow, with loose rocks that threatened to give way under our weight. Timothy led the way, his eyes scanning the path ahead with a mixture of determination and caution. I followed closely, trusting his expertise implicitly. As the day progressed, the weather began to shift. Dark clouds rolled in, casting ominous shadows over the landscape. The temperature dropped, and a sense of unease settled over us. Timothy, ever the optimist, dismissed my concerns, insisting that we could reach the summit before the storm hit. But nature had other plans. A fierce wind whipped through the valley, and rain began to lash against our faces, turning the trail into a slippery nightmare. Visibility dropped, and the once familiar path became a labyrinth of shadows and uncertainty. We decided to seek shelter behind a large outcrop, hoping to wait out the worst of the storm. As we huddled together, the rain intensified, and the sound of thunder echoed through the canyon. Timothy checked our gear, ensuring that our supplies were secure, while I tried to steady my nerves. After what felt like hours, the storm began to abate, leaving behind a heavy silence. We emerged from our temporary refuge, determined to continue our climb despite the worsening conditions. The trail was nearly invisible, obscured by rain-soaked foliage and debris. That's when Timothy noticed something strange. A series of markings etched into the rocks, barely discernible in the dim light. He pointed them out to me, his face pale. "Look at this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never seen anything like it." The symbols were intricate, resembling a mix of ancient script and abstract designs. Timothy speculated that they might be remnants of a long-forgotten tribe, or perhaps warnings left by previous climbers who had encountered something inexplicable. As we pressed on, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. The air felt thick, almost tangible, and an unshakable sense of being watched settled over us. Every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig sent chills down my spine. But Timothy urged me to stay focused. Hours later, we reached a narrow ledge that clung precariously to the side of the mountain. The view was nothing short of spectacular. Vernal Falls roared below, its waters thundering into the abyss. But there was no time to admire the scenery. We needed to push forward. Suddenly, Timothy slipped. One misstep, and he plummeted into the void below. Time seemed to slow as I watched him disappear, his body swallowed by the darkness. Panic surged through me, but I was paralyzed, unable to move or call out. I scrambled to my feet, tears streaming down my face. But the storm had intensified again, making it impossible to see or hear anything beyond my immediate surroundings. I searched frantically along the ledge, calling his name into the howling wind. But there was no response, only the relentless roar of the falls. Desperate, I descended the mountain alone, every step a battle against fear and exhaustion. When I finally reached the base, the storm had passed, leaving behind a haunting stillness. I reported Timothy missing, but despite exhaustive searches, no trace of him was ever found except for his backpack, abandoned near the edge of the ledge, its contents untouched. Years have passed since that fateful day, but the mystery of Timothy's disappearance remains unsolved. Investigators speculated that he fell victim to the treacherous conditions, but the absence of his body left countless questions unanswered. Friends and family offered no solace, their grief compounded by the lack of closure. But for me, the true horror lies not in the unknown fate of Timothy, but in the lingering presence that I can't quite explain. There are nights when I hear footsteps echoing in my mind, the sound of heavy breathing and the faint rustle of climbing gear. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I dream of standing on the ledge, feeling the sheer drop beneath my feet, and the icy grip of fear as Timothy's voice calls out to me from the darkness. I've returned to Vernal Falls multiple times, hoping to find answers or perhaps a glimpse of what truly happened. Each visit only deepens the mystery, as if the mountain itself guards its secrets jealously. The markings we found that day have faded over time, erased by the elements, but the sense of unease remains, a constant reminder of that stormy descent into the unknown. One particularly cold autumn evening, I stood at the base of the falls, watching the sunset behind the towering peaks. The sky was a canvas of fiery oranges and deep purples, the last light reflecting off the water in a mesmerizing display. As the shadows lengthened, a familiar chill settled over me, and I felt an inexplicable pull towards the ledge where Timothy vanished. I stood there, torn between the desire for closure and the fear of what I might uncover. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the faintest hint of a voice, Timothy's voice, calling out my name. My heart pounded as I took a step forward, the ground beneath me firm and unyielding. Yet my mind teetered on the edge of reality and the supernatural. In that moment, I understood that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, that the echoes of the past can linger in the present, shaping our lives in ways we can't comprehend. Timothy's disappearance was more than a tragic accident. It was a brush with the unknown, a reminder of the fragile line between adventure and peril, between the seen and the unseen. As I walked away from Vernal Falls that evening, the weight of unanswered questions settled heavily on my shoulders. Timothy's absence is a void that nothing can fill, a shadow that follows me wherever I go. Yet, I carry his memory with me, a testament to the bond we shared and the enduring quest for truth in the face of the inexplicable. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, I can almost hear him laughing, his voice carried on the breeze, urging me to keep climbing, to keep searching. And though he remains lost to the depths of Vernal Falls, his spirit endures, a beacon of the unyielding human spirit and the mysteries that lie hidden in the heart of the wilderness. Story number 5. Whispers by Silent Lake. I remember the day Stacy disappeared like it was yesterday, though it's been over a decade since that fateful summer. The sun was high, casting dappled shadows through the dense canopy of Pine Ridge Forest where our family had set up camp for the weekend. My name is Ethan Miller, and I was 15 then, on the brink of adulthood, with all the naivete that comes with it. Stacy, an heiress, was the heart of our group. 14. She had an infectious laugh and a curiosity that often led us into adventures we weren't quite prepared for. That weekend was supposed to be a break from our hectic lives in Cedar Falls, a chance to reconnect with nature and each other. Little did we know, it would become the backdrop for one of the most haunting mysteries of our lives. The first couple of days went smoothly. We hiked trails, swam in the cool waters of Pine Ridge Lake, and sat around the campfire sharing stories under a blanket of stars. Stacy was particularly excited about photography. She carried an old Canon with her everywhere, capturing moments that we would later reminisce about. Her favorite spot was a secluded area near a smaller, hidden lake deep within the forest, Silent Lake, as we called it. On the third day, Stacy suggested we explore Silent Lake. Most of us were hesitant, citing the rumors of the forest being impenetrable and eerie after dark. But Stacy's enthusiasm was contagious, and we agreed to join her with some trepidation. We set out in the late morning, the forest alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant bird calls. Stacy led the way, her camera swinging from her neck, always on the lookout for the perfect shot. The trail to Silent Lake was overgrown, the path barely visible beneath years of fallen foliage. As we trekked deeper, the air grew cooler, and an unsettling silence enveloped us, broken only by the crunch of our boots on the underbrush. After what felt like hours, we arrived at Silent Lake. It was smaller than Pine Ridge, surrounded by towering pines and shrouded in a persistent mist that hovered just above the water's surface. The place had an ethereal beauty, almost otherworldly. Stacy immediately began taking pictures, capturing the interplay of light and shadow on the water. "Stay close, everyone," she instructed, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "This place is magical." We agreed, though a sense of unease lingered. As Stacy moved towards the water's edge, the rest of us spread out, taking in the serene yet eerie atmosphere. Time seemed to stretch as we waited for her to return. But as minutes turned into an hour, concern began to set in. "Stacy," I called out, my voice echoing unervingly in the stillness. No response. I glanced around, seeing only the mist swirling lazily above the lake. "Maybe she found a good spot and got distracted," Mark suggested, though his voice wavered slightly. We waited a little longer before deciding to head back. But Stacy was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as we began searching, calling her name with increasing desperation. We scoured the perimeter, the dense forest offering no clues. The only thing we found was her camera, abandoned on a large rock by the shore, the lens cap still on, a haunting symbol of her sudden disappearance. We reported her missing that night, and a search party was organized immediately. Weeks turned into months, and despite exhaustive efforts, no trace of Stacy was ever found except for the lens cap, which was the only evidence left behind. The forest seemed to swallow her whole, leaving us with more questions than answers. The disappearance left an indelible mark on all of us. But it haunted me the most. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, that Stacy was still out there somewhere, lost between the tangible world and something beyond our understanding. Her friends whispered about strange sightings and unexplained noises around Silent Lake, but no one dared to venture back for fear of what they might encounter. Years passed, but the mystery remained unresolved. I went to college, tried to move on, but the memory of that summer and Stacy's disappearance lingered like a shadow I couldn't escape. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing by the lake, camera in hand, smiling as if nothing was wrong. 10 years later, on a chilly October evening, I found myself back in Cedar Falls, unable to ignore the pull towards Pine Ridge Forest. The annual autumn festival was in full swing, but my mind was elsewhere, consumed by the unresolved mystery of Silent Lake. I decided to take a walk, to revisit the place where everything changed. The forest looked different now, more overgrown, the paths almost unrecognizable. As I approached Silent Lake, a chill ran down my spine. The mist was thicker, the air heavier with an unspoken tension. I stood at the edge, the same ethereal beauty mingled with an underlying sense of dread. "Stacy," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Are you here?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the surface of the lake rippled, and I saw her reflection staring back at me, just as she had that day. Her eyes were vacant, a sad smile playing on her lips. My heart pounded as I took a step closer, the memories flooding back. "Stacy, please," pleaded, reaching out as if I could touch her. "We need to find a way to bring you back." She began to move, her reflection detaching from the water and stepping onto the shore. The air grew colder, the mist swirling around her like ghostly tendrils. As she approached, I noticed something different about her, a darkness in her eyes, an otherworldly presence that sent shivers down my spine. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She stopped inches from me, her expression unreadable. "Some things aren't meant to be found," she whispered, her voice echoing unnaturally in the stillness. Before I could respond, the ground beneath us seemed to shift, and the forest around us began to distort. Trees twisted into grotesque shapes, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The once serene Silent Lake transformed into a vortex of shadows and whispers, voices intertwining in a cacophony of fear and sorrow. I stumbled backward, tripping over roots and falling to the ground. The last thing I saw was Stacy's figure dissolving into the darkness, her presence fading as the forest reclaimed its eerie silence. I scrambled to my feet, the path back now obscured by the shifting landscape. Panic surged through me as I realized I was trapped in a nightmare. The forest no longer a place of beauty but a labyrinth of terror. Hours passed. Or perhaps it was minutes. Time seemed irrelevant in the grip of the forest's malevolence. Every step I took only led me deeper into the abyss. The echoes of Stacy's final words haunting my every move. The mist thickened, and shadows danced around me, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. Just when I felt hope slipping away, a faint light appeared through the gloom. I followed it desperately, the whispers growing louder, their meaning lost to my frantic mind. The light led me to the edge of the lake, now calm and still as ever. In the center of the water stood a small island, illuminated by a single beam of sunlight breaking through the canopy. Without thinking, I waded into the chilly water, the weight of fear propelling me forward. As I reached the island, the atmosphere shifted, peaceful yet tinged with an undeniable sadness. In the center stood a weathered stone pedestal, the lens cap resting atop it like a forgotten relic. I picked it up, feeling a surge of energy coursing through me. The lens cap seemed to pulse with a life of its own, the weight of unanswered questions pressing down on my shoulders. Suddenly, the lake's surface began to shimmer, and Stacy's voice echoed around me. "Thank you," she said softly. "Now, let me go." A blinding light enveloped me, and I felt myself being pulled back, the forest fading away as I was thrust into the clearing where our campsite once stood. The morning sun was rising, casting a warm glow over Pine Ridge Forest. I stood alone, the lens cap clutched in my hand, the memories of that night etched into my soul. I never saw Stacy again after that. The forest remained silent, the mystery of Silent Lake unresolved yet somehow complete. The lens cap sits on my shelf, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and something beyond. Sometimes, on quiet nights, I swear I hear her laughter carried on the wind, a bittersweet echo of a friendship lost to the shadows. The story of Stacy and Eris remains a haunting enigma, a tale of love, loss, and the unyielding quest for answers in the face of the unknown. Pine Ridge Forest stands as a sentinel, guarding its secrets, while I carry the weight of that summer in every step I take. And though the whispers by Silent Lake have faded into memory, the longing to understand that which we cannot see continues to linger, a testament to the enduring mysteries that lie just beyond our grasp.